Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to take this Charcuterie board, you see what I did there, and take it from plain and give it a little style with some epoxy. So if that sounds interesting, stick around and I'll show you how I do it. Okay, for this project you're going to need epoxy, cups to mix it in, preferably ones that you have measurements with, something to stir it with. Here we're using some popsicle sticks. Mica powder, that's how we're going to color the epoxy, the colors we need. Gloves, so we can spread some of it around onto the top. You'll see that in a minute. And some sort of work surface. In this case, we're going to be working with a charcuterie board that has antlers on it. All right, so quick disclaimer. We are working with epoxy. It can be dangerous if not used properly, so make sure to read the directions on your particular epoxy. I'm using tabletop epoxy. That seemed to work for me in the past. This particular one is food grade certified. Now that does not mean that you can use all sorts of raw foods on top of it. Generally, the food safe epoxies are used for charcuterie applications or countertops, or tables even that aren't going to have raw foods on them, such as raw meats and things of that nature. So make sure to read the instructions on your epoxy. Same goes with the mica powder. I'm not sure about the food safetiness of this, but in our applications we're just going to apply it to the handle here, so the food shouldn't actually be touching this, so it should be okay. I haven't actually decided if this is going to get sold or not. We're just going to kind of test it and see how it goes. So first we need to mix up the epoxy, equal parts A to B. So let's get that done. All right, so this particular epoxy doesn't have any instructions on the amount of mixing to do. It just says mix thoroughly. Usually somewhere at least 2 minutes. Up to 5 minutes for this much epoxy is fine. I accidentally overfilled my hardener, so I had to go in and add more epoxy. This is going to be way more epoxy than I actually need for this project. So I'm probably going to throw some other junk boards up here, some that aren't in the greatest condition, and play with those too. So we'll see what we can make. Okay, so I forgot something. You're gonna need a heat gun or a torch of some kind to pop the bubbles. You don't need that right away, but you will need that eventually. I also did, because I made too much epoxy, I got 4 cups here, and I went and got my whites, I don't know what they call this color. It doesn't say. It says white, but it's supposed to be like a pearl white. So we're gonna use that as well on a board. And so we're going to put a little bit in each cup and mix up a little bit of each color, and then we're going to start playing around with a couple boards and see what kind of designs we can come up with. Now we're just protecting our work surface and getting our work pieces up off of the table so they can drip as needed.
Alright, so we're just going to start by wiping on a base coat of black epoxy. I think that'll make a good base. And then we're just going to use the popsicle stick to kind of drip the other colored epoxies over the handle. And they'll just kind of naturally blend together. Using the heat gun, we'll pop the bubbles, and that'll further the process of melting them together. Now, I didn't like the line that I left, so I expanded onto the board a little bit to ease the transition.
Now this needs to be checked periodically to get rid of the bubbles, but so far I think it's turning out pretty good. I'm not sure that I had a good idea of what I was doing here, but I think this looks pretty good. And the nice thing about the way I did this is I'm only going to do one side. So if for some reason they did want to use this as a cutting board, if I sold it, once I get all the epoxy sanded off the back side of this could be used as a cutting board still. So I'll keep an eye on it for this evening, and then we'll check back tomorrow morning. Not tomorrow morning, I gotta work. Tomorrow evening. All right, not horrible for a first attempt. I did get a little drop there. And there's a couple of spots where it's got a few raised edges. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to sand this little dot off here. I'm going to go on the back and sand off all the epoxy that dripped up underneath, and finish sanding the rest of the board. And we'll put a clear coat of what do you call that stuff? A clear coat of mineral oil on the board to seal it up. It's a food safe finish, so we'll put that on there and it should be good to go.
Here in just a second, you'll see me wiping water all over this board. That cleans it off a little bit, but actually is used to raise the grains before your final sanding grit. That way, when they wash this the first time, it doesn't get all fuzzy.
There you have it, an epoxy covered deer antler charcuterie board thing. I think that turned out pretty well for a first try. I'm not very good with epoxy yet. I'm still kind of learning, so this is a fun little project to try and learn a little bit. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Hope you got some value out of that. And until next time, I'll catch you later.